shut your door, Sandy? No?
Well, we're leaving it open, so anyway.
Okay, cool. Okay, fine.
Thanks. Okay, so we're moving along in our agenda tonight. Councilors had a closed session earlier, but we had made a motion to move back into open session now. So I'm going to read a notice to the public. Due to efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19 and to protect all individuals, the council chambers at Town Hall will not be open to the public to attend council meetings until further notice. Members of the public who have an interest in a matter listed on the agenda may, up until 10 a.m. on the day of a scheduled council meeting, email councilagenda@orangeville.ca indicating your request to speak to a matter listed on the agenda. Phone number and conference ID code will be provided to you so you may join the virtual meeting and provide your comments to council. Members of the public wishing to raise a question during the public question period of the council meeting may, beginning at 8 p.m. on the evening of the council meeting, call 1-289-801-5774 and enter conference ID 455-046-286#. Correspondence and emails submitted will be considered as public information and entered into the public record. If you require access to information in an alternate format, please contact the Clerk's Division by phone at 519-941-0440 extension 2256 or via email at clerksdepartment@orangeville.ca. Pardon me. We're going to jump here to item number 6, the singing of our national anthem. Mr. Bernard.
Home and native land, true patriot love, in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Very good. That was our good friend, Mr. David Nairn from Theatre Orangeville with that rendition. Thank you, David. We would like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa of the Three Fires Confederacy. This meeting is being aired on public television and/or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Earlier this evening, as I said, we had a closed session, and coming out of that, we're going to rise and report a recommendation that 2020-10-10-26 and 2020-11-09 closed council minutes be received, and that the confidential report CPS-CL 2020-022 regarding committee appointment, Committee of Adjustment and Property Standards Appeals / Dog Designation Committee be received, and that the confidential verbal report of Ray Osmond, General Manager, Community Services, be received, and that staff proceed as directed. May I have a motion for that, please? Councillor Post, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? Thank you, councillors. Item number 10 is the adoption of minutes of a previous council meeting. Those minutes are from October 26, 2020, and November the 9th, 2020. May I have a motion to approve those minutes? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Deputy Mayor McIntosh. All in favor?
Yes.
All right, moving on to presentations, petitions, etc. 11.1, we have Anna McGregor, Director of Community Services from Dufferin County, for a presentation on housing. Ms. McGregor.
Okay, let me just share my screen and let's see if this will work. Can you all see the slides?
Yes.
Hurrah, it worked! I'm so thankful. Okay, thank you very much for the invitation to come tonight. I'm going to share some information with you regarding affordable housing. I have a few slides, not too many, you'll be glad to hear, and within the slides I've embedded some links so that you can go back at a later date and research more of the information if that's what you would like to do. So, why would Community Services come and share information with the town of Orangeville on community housing? The list in front of you are waitlist, rent supplement, homeless prevention programme, home ownership programme, a repairs and renovation programme. We are a social landlord. We work with local housing providers. We provide funding to emergency shelters, and we also facilitate the homeless crisis table. All of those services within our housing division give us a really good lens on what Dufferin as a whole needs and looks for housing. What does it mean when you say affordable housing? So it means different things to different people. If we talk about rent geared to income, we're talking about 30% of a household's total gross income. If we talk about affordable housing in relation to funding from the government that's called investment in affordable housing, that's where it's 80% of average market rent, and the rent is static and it doesn't change with income, and it only increases once a year in line with the rent control guideline. And then you would factor into that things like utilities, because some rent will include utilities and some will not. Now, when you look at housing, there are two models in which assistance is given. We have a traditional model where you apply and are on a wait list and you get a unit and the physical unit has subsidy attached, or you can have housing benefit or housing allowance that is given to the household and the household take that to where they need to take it to. Some illustrative numbers for you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's just say you're a single person and you're on ODSP, which is an Ontario Disability Support Programme, and you want to rent a bachelor unit. Average rent $947, but on ODSP your total check per month is only $1,169. I've also shared some details there: Canada Pension Plan, your current CERB benefits, with the amount of rent regarding the size of property. And as you can see, affordability is a very, very real concern for many households. But is it just numbers? Well, one of the reasons we do what we do is because this is about people, and it's a very widespread problem. If we look nationally, they estimate around about 35,000 Canadians could be homeless on any given night in Canada, and that's well over 200,000 people in a year. That's a very scary statistic. If the people side doesn't get you, maybe the business case and the money would. It's actually cheaper to provide affordable and supportive housing than it is to have people continually homeless, because the costs on the alternatives of homelessness, for example, hospital, emergency shelter, and even jail, costs a lot more than standard housing would cost. What does that look like for Dufferin? 1 in 10 approximately in Dufferin live in poverty, and that's from Stats Canada. 1 in 9 live in core housing need, and that's where the shelter costs versus income are, meaning you're really struggling. Our housing access centralised waiting list averages 4 to 8 years, depending on what your selection is. And we currently have an average, as at Q3 of this year, of 681 households waiting for subsidised housing. We currently have around about 25 people on what's called the by name list, which is a list for people who are homeless within Dufferin. So as you can see, nationally, we do have concerns with housing and affordability, as well as at a local level. Now, how can people help? All is not lost, ladies and gentlemen. Various agencies and organisations can band together. They can create different partnerships. We see it in lots of different places where private and public can go together, or public and non-profit. You can research, there's lots of different funding envelopes from different places at different times. Landlords and property managers can look past income and look at other things. What would the tenant be like to actually have as a tenant? It's not just money. And if you do have a tenant who's in financial need, refer them to support services. Residential builders can partner with private and non-profit. And again, for builders, there's often subsidies and funding available. And private landlords and homeowners can also look at the creation of secondary suites. Now, this slide may be more of interest to council. This is a list of things that municipalities can look at if they're looking to assist when it comes to affordable housing. It's not just about going and getting a huge amount of money and creating new housing. There's lots of other things that can be done as well. There's actually a link in the document to the page where this came from, and this is from CMHC, which is the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. And a number of things on this list are things that the County of Dufferin have actually looked at. As you may know, we've actually created 3 new housing developments since 2010. So, resources. If you're a municipality and you're wanting to look at more affordable housing, right now the federal government actually have something called the Rapid Housing Initiative. Now, it is time limited. They want applications in before the end of this year, and you can apply for capital funding. And what they want people to do is either have something that is pretty much shovel ready, or something that you're going to adapt and renovate, or maybe looking at modular homes, because they want money out the door quickly to quickly create more housing. Again, there's links there to CMHC to provide more information and support. And then there's also a link there to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for documentation that they've provided for municipalities to look at all those different ways that you could assist to create more housing. And it's not all doom and gloom. I'm aware when I come and I share these stats, it can seem very, very pessimistic. But in Dufferin, in 2016, we had 78 people who were homeless. 2018, 44. And we currently have around about 25. So we are making differences. We are chipping away at the numbers. We always would want to have more affordable housing, but being realistic, we know we can't always just automatically go out and build. And those changes that you've seen have been changes in services, changing in how we do funding, and actually giving people funding to take to different units. So tackling affordable housing shortages is a mix of lots of different things. If you would like more information and to do any reading, we have got our 10-year housing and homelessness plan, and we also have a report from DCEC, which is our equity collaborative. And that wraps up my presentation. Short and sweet.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. McGregor. Councillors, do you have any questions for Ms. McGregor?
I do, please, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Post.
Thank you very much. Ms. McGregor, thank you so much for being here today. Every time you speak to us about homelessness and affordable housing in our community, I always have my eyes opened a little wider. Through COVID, I'm just wondering if you've seen an increase in applications for subsidized housing or any of those things since March, and also has your department or area done any research or projections on what may still occur if our pandemic situation doesn't improve. I know right now, as we head into a second wave, it looks a little bleak. So I'm just wondering, I know that residents are already struggling financially, and I'm concerned that this could be a big increase.
Yes, so I'll take your question in two parts. So for some of our services within community services, there's been slight increase, but believe it or not, if I use the example of our Ontario Works caseload, it's actually gone down. And there's a very real reason for that. If you remember in one of my slides, an OW recipient will get $733. The federal benefits are $2,000. There straight away, we are seeing that we are not having as many people coming for financial assistance. Our housing wait list is around about the same. There's not been a huge amount of fluctuation there because it's an actual wait list and you're putting your name and you're waiting for it to come up. We have seen slightly less traffic on the homeless prevention side as well, and that's where people will come to pay and ask for money for utility arrears or rent arrears, or to do the first and last on accommodation they found. Again, a knock-on effect because of the federal benefits. The real concern that we have in community services, and this is shared across the province, is when the federal benefits run out, there's going to be a very steep curve and a lot of people will suddenly go crash. So we are almost bracing for a tsunami next year where people are going to be in real need. So what that will look like, how many people will get, and the amount of demand is anybody's guess, but the province are very aware of that too. So I hope that answered both sides.
It does. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, you're muted.
Thank you, Councillor Post. I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. McGregor, for your presentation. It's certainly concerning, and I think our council needs to work on this issue, and affordable housing, both for seniors and other folks, is front of mind right now for everybody. So thank you very much for your presentation. All right, moving along. 11.2, we have Stephanie Stewart, Manager of Community Transportation of Grey County, to discuss transit. Stephanie.
Good evening, Mayor Brown. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Good evening, Orangeville Council. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I'd like to begin by letting you know how this project started. So I began working on this project in July of 2019. Grey County has been working on transit for quite a while, and we were lucky to receive funding a little bit prior to my beginning of the project. Funding began in about the 2018 timeframe, and we've been working diligently with different consultants and applying to the provincial grant for the community transportation pilot project that we are currently under. We received from the province $1.8 million to enhance transportation in Grey County. This was to allow service from Owen Sound to Markdale, Owen Sound to Wyerton, Owen Sound to the town of Blue Mountains, and to support our local youth center in Hanover. Additionally, Southgate received funding for $500,000 from the province to enhance transportation from Dundalk to the town of Orangeville. In addition to this, Grey County Council endorsed a transit route along Grey Road 4, operating between Flesherton, Durham, Hanover, and Walkerton, which ultimately creates a connection for more people to the town of Orangeville and beyond. Right now, we began service on September 14th, and it has been a great success so far. We run currently between Owen Sound and Orangeville Monday to Friday, 5 days per week. We've had 118 riders use the service so far. Our most popular destinations are the Go Bus stop in Orangeville at the Orangeville Mall, followed by the downtown location, also remains very popular as many people like to connect there to other services and use your Orangeville Transit. We began collecting fares on November 1st, so that will give us a better understanding of what our true ridership is after that. But we've also been hearing and listening to a lot of what our riders have been telling us. And we've been hearing that more and more people actually would like to connect to Orangeville and go to the Go, or connect to all the services that are being offered in Orangeville. So we will be changing our schedules in the very near future to allow for more accommodations and more scheduled connections, so more people can connect from Owen Sound Meaford, the town of Blue Mountains, Grey Highlands, and all throughout Grey County, because we've heard that Orangeville is the connection that people would like to make. Additionally, I'm working with your town of Orangeville staff and Dufferin County staff to work on a vehicle for hire bylaw to allow for seamless travel throughout Dufferin and Grey County for our residents. Because what we were hearing is, yes, we have conventional transit and that's great, but we know that the last mile is really difficult for a lot of people, and getting to Highway 10 is sometimes challenging because we know so many people live off of Highway 10. So hopefully by working with Town of Orangeville staff and Dufferin County staff, and I'm also working with Bruce County staff, we can write a bylaw that works collectively, so that way people can travel easily through it everywhere, regardless of which platform that comes in, whether that be Uber or Lyft. So I know that you guys will be potentially moving your transit location in the near future, your transit terminal, and we are open to working with your staff and hearing your suggestions and your consultants and your team as to where we should be working and where we should be stopping, because ultimately we are hearing that people are connecting to your services, so we want to make sure that more and more residents can travel between our county and your county and travel to all the local amenities that people are wanting to use. So it's been a great pleasure so far to work with everyone on your team, and it's been a wonderful ride so far. Does anyone have any questions for me?
I don't see any. Okay, Stephanie, oh, Councillor Taylor, you're muted, sir.
Well, I guess we'll all get to do it once. You've had yours, Your Worship. I'll take mine, and we'll let the other 5 have theirs throughout this call as well. Yes, thank you for your presentation. I was just curious if you could reiterate for me, what are people doing from your area when they come to Orangeville, and why are they coming here?
For sure. Through your worship, thank you, Councillor. That's a great question. So a lot of people are looking to connect. For now, we don't know for sure. We're beginning to profile the riders more. We're going to start that in the near future to find out and ask them exactly where they're traveling to. But the first few months, we can see that the majority of people are getting off at the Go Bus stop location by the Orangeville Mall. Now, we don't know for sure if they're getting on that bus, the Go Bus or not, but what we can tell is that that's our most popular pickup and drop off location. So one of two things is occurring is either people are using the Go Bus to connect to Toronto, and we do know that's happening because we've gotten requests to make our schedule have more connections so more people can use the Go Bus to go to Toronto. But we also are hearing that people are coming back and family members are using it to come from Brampton or other connections along that route that Go Bus travels, and they're using it both ways to meet their family and friends in Orangeville or Shelburne or Dundalk. But the other amenities that you guys have in Orangeville that we don't necessarily have, you have some additional healthcare services that we don't have. So some of our residents that live in Southgate do travel to the Orangeville Hospital or to doctors and healthcare professionals in your area.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship, through you to Ms. Stewart, thank you very much for that. Very exciting to think that people want to come and experience our community. It's definitely a place worthwhile to visit. Maybe not necessarily at this time, but you know, we have the theater and all kinds of other great events that happen downtown with Farmers Market and of course all of our festivals. So to have more people being able to access that is wonderful. Can you clarify again to me how many stops you have in Orangeville and where they are? I know I caught the mall, Orangeville Mall Metro grocery area. Where else are you stopping?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Your Worship. We stop, I can give you the full route loop. So we start at the Dundalk Arena and we make 2 stops in Shelburne. So one stop as you're coming into Shelburne on Fiddle Park Lane there. And then the second stop is in downtown Shelburne. And then we continue on and we stop at the Go Bus stop where the Orangeville Mall is on Hanson Boulevard. And then we continue on and we stop at the Forest Street Transfer Station, which is where all of your buses are currently transferring as well.
Thank you. Okay, great.
Okay. Well, I don't see any other hands up there from councilors, so I want to thank Stephanie Stewart for her presentation today, and we're looking to collaborate with our regional partners on transportation. So we do want everybody to be able to connect efficiently, so appreciate what you folks are doing in Grey County. Thanks very much, Stephanie. All right, moving along. We have our next presentation, 11.3. This is from Mr. Terrence Carter regarding the transit transfer station. Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to see if I can get the slides up. So stop sharing, we've done that.
It's up on my screen. It's been there for a few minutes now.
Okay. Okay. Good. Okay, that's great. Good. Well, thank you, Your Worship. I've got 5 minutes. I'm going to keep within it. It's been a pleasure to talk to so many of the council members over the last month or so. So thank you for that opportunity to get to know each of you a bit better. My reason for this presentation today, is my 4th time before council, is to set out 5 reasons in 5 minutes why I would like to suggest the council should reconsider the motion of April the 20th, 2020 to locate the transit transfer station on Broadway. The first reason is the Orangeville Transit Committee and the town council have repeatedly expressed a preference to locate the transit terminal on the Center Street location by Edelbrock. And in that regard, if we just take a look at the PowerPoint that I put together, this is sort of a summary of certain matters that I've set out in the, see if I can advance here, Bruce. How do I advance here? I'm clicking on the show button there. Good. Thank you. Very good. So this is a highlight of what I provided to council in the handout materials. So in 2016, the location being looked at was the Westdale Mall. 16, the transit committee was formed. In 17, there was a decision that the Westdale Mall was not possible. So the Dillon report was done in July of 17. That came up with the recommendation of the location on Broadway. But I would just point out that there's no evidence that in the council minutes that the Dillon report was ever presented or received by town council. In November of 17, notwithstanding that report, the transit committee looked at the lay-by option on Center Street in the Edelbrock Center. In 2017, December, the transit committee made a recommendation to look again at the Dawson Street, Center Street location. January of 18, there was discussion about a through roadway plan at the Edelbrock Center. Just point out that Councillor Taylor, who was a committee member at that point, moved that. In March of 18, council unanimously approved the Edelbrock Center for a drive-through location. In May of 18, County Council deferred discussion. They tabled it, the matter. And so in June of 18, there was the suggestion that there would be a lay-by option on Center Street. And again, the committee member Todd Taylor supported that. In July of 18, there was the decision by the committee to move forward with the lay-by option on Center Street. It was moved again by committee member Todd Taylor. August of 13, town council endorsed the Center Street lay-by option. In August of 18, the County of Dufferin Social Services Committee approved the Center Street location. However, in September of 18, town council defeated moving forward because there was a split vote. So in September of 18, the county council had to table moving forward. Then we move into February of 19, and there was a decision to go back to the county to talk about the Center Street location. And then we skip forward to April of 20th and of 2020, and that's where the decision was made to go ahead with the Broadway location. So there's been a constant preference by committee and by council for the Edelbrock Center. The second reason for reconsideration is that the 2017 Dillon report has, I think, problems associated with it. First of all, it's 3 years old. Secondly, it was frankly ignored by the Transit Committee and by council until earlier this year. And the analysis, which is contained within a chart, you'll see it up here, the chart, which I don't have time to go through, but I have given part of it into the agenda, does a comparison. And when we go down and look at the numbers at the end, the Dillon report gave Broadway 8 points to go ahead with it, or I should say the Centre Street with 8, and had provided the Broadway location with 15. And with the analysis that I did, and recognize I'm not an expert in this area, you'll see that the scores show better for the Centre Street location. And if you do some of the other analysis, you'll see that the Centre Street location comes out very much on top. The third reason for reconsideration is that local business was not consulted. And when it was, you've seen the result from the BIA with 85 signatures. The fourth reason is that the safety report, which has come forward through the IBI group, basically indicates that there, or acknowledges there is a problem with jaywalking. The solution is to move everything over to the south side. I wouldn't want to be on the south side. I feel sorry for my neighbors in that regard. But the reality is that you need more than 10 parking spots in order to meet the parking, the bus requirements. Even the Dillon report talked between 11 to 16. The accident study did not take into account the police service report that I provided before, showing that there were many more accidents than they indicate. And then the last point that I want to make within my 5 minutes is that the fifth point is that things have changed in relation to the County of Dufferin's, their interest in having the Edelbrock Center to be a central location. There seems to be a lot of potential there that would address so many of the issues that have been brought up. So, Your Worship, those are my comments to council, to suggest to them that this would be an opportune time to reconsider the decision that was made back in April. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Councillors, any questions for Mr. Carter? I see none. We shall move along. I don't believe Allison Shield is with us. Can Madam Clerk, can you confirm that?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we'll move along to 11.5, Delegate Mr. Troy Brett with the Orangeville BIA. Mr. Brett.
Hi, thank you, Worship. Thank you, Worship, and Town Council for letting me the opportunity.
Can you hold Mr. Brett? Mr. Bonato, I still have the presentation from Mr. Carter up on my screen. Has everybody else got the same?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to try to get rid of it.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Okay, go ahead, Troy.
All right, thanks for the opportunity to speak this evening. Yeah, I'm Troy Brett, and I'm the vice chair at the BIA and owner at Mochaberry Coffee, located on Broadway, for those of you who don't know me. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Those were great points you made, very important. I hope the Town Council will consider all of those points that Mr. Carter made. I know the almost 300 members of the BIA do support his concerns, and so does the board. The impact of the transfer station to the general atmosphere of the Heritage Downtown is very important to us. It could possibly be very off-putting to tourists. We're selling authentic Heritage Downtown, and the transit hub does not fit with this brand, and we feel this is not a good economic development strategy. Also, I know there's a tourism study currently being done by the town of Orangeville, and this does not seem to coincide with that strategy. You've heard from us from previous council meetings, and just wanted to be very clear that the downtown transit hub is not supported by downtown businesses. The BIA in the town has spent millions of dollars over the years for parking, and taking away 16 spots for the transit hub just doesn't make any sense in that regard. Now, Mr. Carter brought up the safety study, and I made the same observation as him that it's fine, putting it all on the south side, the transit hub that is, but there's only 10 spaces there, and we've been told it's going to take 11 to 16 spaces. So just not sure how this will work. As we are all very aware too, the pandemic is hitting small businesses all around Ontario extremely hard. The businesses in downtown Orangeville are no different. We're getting hit with this as well. We're all pivoting our businesses to takeout, online, curbside pickup, which really counts on having the roadside access for this to work. Please consider these things and how something like taking away roadside parking can negatively impact the downtown businesses. We truly appreciate everything the town has done for the downtown, and we hope Town Council will reconsider putting the transit hub on Broadway and move forward with a better, grander solution by putting it at the Center Street location. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brett. Councillors, any questions for Mr. Brett? Seeing none, we'll move along to Mr. Frank Gray. Mr. Gray wishes to speak to the transfer station as well. Mr. Gray, are you with us?
Yes,
you'll have to press #6.
Yeah, I think I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. Well, thanks for the opportunity to address council. I've been interested in this project for a long time. I'm probably the senior business person on the main street, from being a retailer to a landlord, and I understand fully the importance of parking in the downtown core, as I've had to provide quite a bit of it. Anyway, Mayor Brown, Deputy Mayor McIntosh, Councillors Lisa Post, Grant Peters, Joe Andrews, Debbie Sherwood, and Todd Taylor. Most of what I am about to say has already been said many times. After going through a lot of council meetings over the past 5 years, the issue of where to locate the new proposed bus terminal has gone back and forth quite a few times, as Terry Carter has mentioned. The BIA, which represents businesses and property owners in the downtown core, have been solidly against the location of proposed bus terminal in the downtown core between First and John Street for many, many reasons, such as safety, noise, fumes, and lots of parking, plus the added confusion because of 4 buses coming and going. It is easy to understand why the Westdale Mall turned down the location in their mall for the bus terminal for the very same reasons that downtown core turned down the bus terminal for. The safety study that reports back to council tonight is not a document that I have read, but I have heard that the study recommends using just the south side of Broadway between First and John Street. This is not good enough and does not answer the concerns that I have. There is a great deal of enthusiasm for the Edelbrook property, which makes a lot of good planning. There is ample land between the Edelbrook Centre and the railroad line behind the beer store on Center Street. The road to the proposed bus terminal could be entered to the north of the hydro station on Dawson Road and exit near the river and railroad tracks on Center Street. To stay far away as possible from the Edelbrook building so as to not get in the way of any unplanned expansion of the Edelbrook building would be an ideal situation, and I think we can do that. However, it could possibly mean the moving of the newer trees that were planted near the community gardens. It could impact the community gardens, which are used for 5 to 6 months of the year by a small group of residents of the town. There are other locations that could accommodate the community gardens as well. The location of the bus terminal is a very, very important decision to make for the long-term planning of the town of Orangeville and especially the transit system. As the town continues to grow, this is a great location, centrally located, at the Edinburgh Center land. The Orangeville Transit, Grey County Transit, TOK coach lines, I guess they're proposed, and GO buses, and any expansion of the Orangeville Transit and the others that were mentioned would be in a great position for the future in this location, as there is lots of room. There is apparently grants for the provincial and federal government to move this project forward. There is a great chance that the county will help us with this project, as the word seems to be that there's going to be some cooperation there, providing we can not impact on the future expansion of the Edinburgh building. In closing, let's get this bus terminal in the right location this time. This is the right decision to make. It's a tough decision to make. This decision is, again, very, very important. Let's get it right this time and give us some cooperation, and let's go for the center at the Edinburgh Center and work something out with the county. I think it can be done, and I think this is for the long-term planning of the town of Orangeville and the bus terminal long-term planning. This is the place to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Any questions of Mr. Gray from council? Seeing none, I think we should move up 11.8 ahead of 11.7, as that is Ashlyn Wilson and Michelle Thompson also wish to speak to the transit transfer terminal. Councillors, can we have leave to move that item up? Thank you. I see some nodding heads. All right, so Ms. Wilson and Ms. Thompson, over to you.
Thank you for having me, and good evening. My name is Ashley Wilson, and I'm speaking on behalf of Orangeville Memorials this evening to ask Council to reconsider the implementation of a transit transfer point outside of our building at 214 Broadway in Orangeville. On behalf of Orangeville Memorials, we have sent in several letters to Council in opposition to the transit transfer point outside of our building, and I do appreciate the opportunity to also speak this evening. For some background, established in 1894, Orangeville Memorials has operated and provided quality products and services to families in Orangeville and surrounding areas. We have honored loved ones and celebrated their lives by creating lasting cemetery monuments and other memorials. We have an extensive indoor and outdoor showroom on Broadway, showcasing high quality monumental granite from around the world. The safety of our clientele and the accessibility of our business is extremely important. Seniors who may have canes, walkers, vision impairments, or other issues are our primary clientele. We are currently exploring options to increase the accessibility of our business, located in a beautiful heritage building. As we cannot change the format of the building, one of these options is to add a ramp at the front door, as there is currently a large step. This ramp would be put out and brought in daily to assist our clientele in accessing our services. It is inadvisable to add a transit transfer point along Broadway, considering the needs of our main clientele. A transit terminal would add even more traffic to an already congested high traffic area. And if we do decide that a ramp is our best option to address the needs of our clientele, we are concerned it may become a pedestrian hazard. As we also understand, the safety study is also considering the transit transfer point to be on the south side of Broadway, which would take away at least 10 parking spots on our business side. With this, I would also like to highlight that we not only serve the residents of Orangeville, but we have a lot of clientele from outside of town, from communities all around us, including Guelph and Brampton, and as far away as Elliott Lake in Northern Ontario. So we definitely need to have convenient parking available outside the store and close to it, as clients in a lot of situations drive into Orangeville to see us and may be driving quite a distance to access our services. It would definitely be inconvenient to ask them to park at a distance, walk a great distance in all seasons and in all kinds of weather, when they, as I have stated, may have mobility issues, for example. Maintaining the dignity and privacy we pride ourselves in having for the families we serve is imperative. We stand firm that increased vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic, the loss of parking spaces along Broadway, as well as the increase in offensive transit exhaust and noise would minimize the respect and consideration our clientele deserve. The increased noise will also be of a hindrance to those who reside in the apartment above our location. There are just so many issues with the Broadway location for the transit terminal, and we would be very grateful if council were to consider and relocate the terminal to the Elderbrock Center, where it really makes more sense and doesn't overlook the importance and necessity of providing accessible services for businesses and clientele along Broadway, and doesn't overlook the heritage of downtown Orangeville. So on behalf of Orangeville Memorials, thank you very much for your consideration. And Ms. Shell Thompson here as well that would like to say a few things.
Well, it was a collaboration. However, I also just wanted to reiterate the impact of COVID on small businesses, and now taking away the parking and access to the small businesses that rely on the traffic and the commuting traffic could be very detrimental in the long run. We do feel that it needs to be a centralized location for the transit. Listening to the Grey County Transit and what their necessities are in coming to Orangeville, being the hospital, doctors, whether it's stores for shopping, that sort of thing. I don't believe that the specialized shops in the downtown offer as much as maybe having somewhere else for the location. And that's about it. We also do have a concern for more vandalism that may happen to the local shops. Thank you, Council.
Mr. Mayor, you're muted.
Mr. Mayor.
Again, any further questions, councillors, of Ms. Thompson or Ms. Wilson? Seeing none, let's move along to 11.7. Mr. David McKay wishes to speak to 515 Broadway. Mr. McKay.
Yes, hello, Your Worship, members of council. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to delegate to indicate our support for the staff recommendation. We have, over the last 2 years, been working diligently with staff, both at the town as well as the Conservation Authority, to move this project forward. We've resolved a number of the technical issues dealing with the property, and we are looking forward to moving forward with this project. And I'd like to thank staff for their support and their work ethic to move this project forward, and welcoming a full continuum of care in terms of retirement living on this property moving forward with your support. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Mr. McKay, has the proposal been modified at all? Or I think when you initially came with the Primacare team, that it was to be a long-term care facility, the larger building. Is that still the intent?
There's right now there is the physical form of the building is essentially the same. The programming of the building is they're looking at different models. One is a long-term care facility with a retirement component. Another component, as indicated on the staff report, is for what's called a butterfly model, which has different levels of care dealing with memory loss and memory care facilities, as well as other components as one ages through the process, as well as some independent living as well. So they're effectively the model is the same. The built form on site is very similar, and the programming is a little bit in flux in terms of looking at how things are moving forward and the needs of the community going forward, especially in the time of COVID.
It's COVID has certainly focused attention on senior care, long-term care. So I was very impressed with the presentation that the folks from Primacare put forward to us. Seemed like state-of-the-art care, and to be something that would be great to be in Southern Dufferin County and Orangeville in particular. So thank you. Any questions for Mr. McKay, councillors? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Pedro Pimentel. Mr. Pimentel wishes to speak to 99 Mill Street. Sir. And Philomena Nunez is also on board. I'm sorry. Go right ahead. Mr. Bonato, are those folks on telephone?
Yes. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, I can, Mr. Pimentel. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Your Worship, and memberships of member of the council. It's not a particular presentation. I just wanted to talk in case there's any questions the council has regarding 99 Mill Street. It's item number 12.3, and that's the reason of I have prepared myself for any questions regarding this item of the agenda.
Right. Okay, well, we are going to hear a report from staff, and I certainly would encourage you to stay on the line, sir. And councillors may have questions once that report is delivered.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much. Okay, that ends our list of presentation and petitions or delegations. So let's move on to staff reports now. Our first staff report is 12.1. Which is the Orangeville Transit Point Update and Safety Study. Mr. Jones, are you going to speak to this, or Mr. Lackey?
Having trouble getting unmuted. I can answer any questions council may have. Essentially, the content of the report, I believe, speaks for itself.
Okay. Very good. Councillors, yes, Councillor Andrews, right ahead.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Jones and Mr. Lackey, for the report, and also for IBI and their information about the safety study. I do have a couple of questions, and again, some of these were posed to Mr. Jones, and I appreciate the detail that you provided back to me in particular, but for the sake of members of council and members of public, I posed a couple of questions regarding the safety study and regarding lane configuration, but also a comment that was highlighted in your report that the cost for a downtown transit terminal would be nominal to construct. Could you expand a little bit about that if you can at this time, Mr. Jones?
Certainly, through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Andrews. Essentially, the costs associated with putting the downtown transfer terminal in place were considered to be nominal. For the most part, we're talking about putting in some lane markings. Ultimately, there would be shelters put in place as well. In terms of the recommendations in the safety study about modifying the lane configurations, I think it's important to remember this study is a safety study, and it has looked at what are some perceived safety issues and come up with several different options as to how we might mitigate those. At this point, the design work toward completing the transfer terminal in the downtown location is on hold. But these are things that could be considered as part of that, and that at that time they could be costed. But at this point, those are not part of a design plan. Those are just suggestions on how to mitigate specific safety issues.
And I appreciate your comments, Mr. Jones, and also the information that was provided in that report. I do have a concern about, and I've expressed that to you, as you know, regarding the, I guess it's considered to be a middle lane or the eastbound lane, and one of the suggestions is to reduce the length of that, which could pose some congestion issues in the proposed site on the south side. As you know, there's a rather long entry point even west of John that alleviates some of the congestion that sometimes occurs. And for those of us who have been monitoring the amount of increased traffic that's been proceeding in an eastern direction or even a westerly direction, it has increased. And again, I know it was just a suggestion by IBI, but no doubt you and your team would end up reviewing that in this particular case.
Through you, Your Worship, that's exactly right, Councillor Andrews. When we would, the suggestion that was made in the safety study, I would characterize as qualitative, and indicating that back-to-back left turn lanes or elimination of a lane and shortening that left turn lane from eastbound Broadway onto northbound 1st Street might alleviate some of the potential safety issues with crossing. I would agree with you that further study would be required to determine what the stacking distance should be in that left turn lane. Certainly, the last thing that anybody wants is vehicles that want to turn left not being able to get into a turn lane and stopping through traffic from getting through at 1st Street. That would certainly have a greater issue. So if this is something that we were to consider, we would have to move forward and quantify what the required stacking distance is to see whether this is truly an option or not.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, councillors, any further comments on this study? Councillor Sherwood, go right ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm going to have to go by memory here because for some reason my eScribe screen is completely frozen, and I'm afraid if I close it out, I might be exiting the meeting. So if I do, that's what I'm just going to have to go by memory here, and it's kind of frustrating right now. In the report, there's a couple of things that need to be corrected, I believe. So on page 3 of the study, in the first full paragraph, the report says that County Council tabled a motion on September 23rd, when it was actually September 13th, to move forward with the Centre Street lay-by option. Kind of makes it imply that the County Council didn't want to proceed with Centre Street. So County Council only tabled the motion to move forward with the Centre Street lay-by because Town Council had already defeated a similar motion to do so 3 days before, on the 10th. Then on page 62 of 274 of the agenda package, on page 3 in the second paragraph, the report fails to indicate that at the February 11th, 2019 Town Council meeting, it was not simply staff that recommended that the town go back to the county to have the county reconsider the Centre Street lay-by option without an endorsement from council, as the report implies. The recommendation was actually part of the motion adopted by Town Council, moved by Sandy and seconded by Todd Taylor, that the clerk be directed to request the county clerk bring the transit transfer terminal back to County Council for reconsideration. So those are just a couple of anomalies within the report.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Any other councillors wish to comment on this? Okay, we need a motion to receive that report. May I have a motion to receive, please? Councillor Post, seconded by?
Peters.
Peters? I'm sorry, Councillor Peters, I can't see you on the screen. My apologies.
No worries.
Okay, we'll call the vote now. Councillor Andrews. This is a motion to receive the report. Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I should have been Councillor Sherwood first. My apologies. Councillor Sherwood.
Sorry, Your Worship, but are we voting on to receive the report?
Receiving the report, yes.
Yes.
Okay, Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Mayor Brown voting to receive the report, yes. Councillor Peters.
Yes.
And Councillor Post, one more time, sorry.
Still yes, thank you.
And Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, I know that Deputy Mayor McIntosh wishes to speak to this matter. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Worship. I'm not sure if this is the right time, but I'd like at this time to move a motion to reconsider that resolution number 2020-141 regarding the location of the transit station at Broadway between First Street and John Street be reconsidered.
Okay.
Yep.
I will second that motion. So just to be clear, through our procedural bylaw, this is a motion for a revote on this particular resolution. Any further comments from councillors on this?
Peters?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Through you, I think this one's pretty clear. I think everyone knows where I stand on it already, but council made the decision to move forward with the downtown terminal based on several factors. One of those was the completion of the safety study. The findings of the safety study are fairly conclusive in that where there are minor concerns, there are solutions, and that in general that there are no major concerns. One of the other pieces brought up continuously by the BIA is parking, which we're working on through the 82 to 90 Broadway project. I don't think, one particular location overall, if we're going to be increasing parking, should be of concern. We should be looking at the downtown as a whole. And I think the rest of my points I've already made over time, but I'll be sticking with the downtown location.
Very good, Councillor Peters. Any other councillors wish to comment on this motion before we vote? Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Post. Go ahead. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I think to me, I just keep going back to the main reasons why I'm sitting in this chair in the first place. And that is, I guess A, I thought I could make a difference through thinking through projects. B, I wanted to make sure we did so in a respectful fashion. And C, I wanted to be respectful of the Orangeville taxpayers. And when I look at this, the options that are in front of us, although there's grants, there's cost to them. We've already paid money for consultants to come through. The idea of moving over to Edelbrock is just shy of $400,000. This council has used numerous consultants, and to me, why use them if we're not going to utilize the information that they give us? The recommendation by that consultant, number one, is to have the terminal downtown. The recommendation by the safety consultant is much ado about nothing. So I will not be supporting Deputy Mayor McIntosh and his motion.
Right. Councillor Post. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I also won't be supporting Deputy Mayor's motion today, with all due respect. I echo a lot of what Councillor Peters and Councillor Taylor have already said, which is when I ran for council, I ran on a few key principles, and it was making the best decisions possible based on facts and information and not on emotion, and that I would do my absolute best to use taxpayers' money as wisely as possible. So I'm not a transit expert, and I recognize that, and none of us are. And because of this, when the discussions began years ago, the council of the day enlisted the help of experts that had no emotional or vested interest in our community to make sure that we chose an appropriate location. So, in my opinion, it is a blatant disregard of taxpayer money to ignore recommendations from the experts just because he didn't give us the answers that we wanted. We've now added even more taxpayer money to this to pay an additional consultant to reinvestigate based on safety concerns, which came back in this report with no significant concerns. So we're upwards of over $50,000 of taxpayers' money already invested in reports. Now, the second argument that I'm hearing is that the Edelbrock East-West Road location is best because it will accommodate future growth of a countywide transit system and an expansion of GO services. And all of these things sound absolutely wonderful in theory, but realistically right now we're in the middle of a pandemic and GO usage is down. The likelihood of expansion in the near future is very low, and I've heard no evidence that GO is ready to make any financial or contractual commitment to our town. I also haven't heard any comments from Dufferin County about them wanting to financially support this very expensive hub, nor have they committed to a Dufferin transit system at any point in the near future. I know that it's all in conversation right now, so I make these comments because I'm not saying that the Edelbrock location should be halted completely. I think there is still discussion to be had at some point, but today is not that day. Once these commitments are received, maybe we could go back and re-look at those areas, and they could be considered for a future growth project. But at this time, why should our Orangeville taxpayer have to foot the bill for these potential what ifs and maybes that may come down the line and may not? We're in a financially difficult time right now with COVID. Our residents are suffering with financial burdens, and our consultants that were funded, like I said, with taxpayer dollars, deemed that the best location is also the most inexpensive option, and that often doesn't happen. So I struggle a little bit to change a decision that right now we're not putting permanent infrastructure in. We have an opportunity to move this in the future if any of these potentials do come into play without any cost or minimal cost, nominal cost, as Mr. Jones said, to the taxpayer. So for those reasons right now, I won't support the revisiting of the issue. Thank you.
Right. Well, Councillor Post, as a rebuttal, you talk about an expensive, well, it's an expensive decision for who? Our downtown businesses and property owners have roundly come out against this decision that council previously made. I think we have to listen to the BIA, we have to listen to our downtown businesses. Some of the new information that's come since this vote was taken was some regional transit. We heard from Grey County earlier. We also understand that TLK Coach Lines is running a service to Pearson and Union. It's on right now. And of course, Metrolinx could be brought into an Edelbrock hub. So I think you want to make the best decision for the long-term good. And you know, that clearly, in my mind, is Edelbrock. So we're at a point now. Deputy Mayor McIntosh, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick rebuttal. As far as consultants lay out options for us. I think as council, it's our job to make the right decision for the town. Again, I don't consider it wasting money to get a consultant. They advised us, we listened, and we make the right decision for the town. That was one of the options, is the Edelbrock Center. So, you know, a consultant, they did a good job on the report, and I think it was money well spent by the previous council. But I guess those are my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So if there's no further comment, I'd like to call the vote. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Sherwood has her hand up. Go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I too am very respectful to the taxpayers' dollars, but at the same time, we have to realize that our commercial property owners also pay 2.5 times what a residential taxpayer pays. And of those 300 merchants that are downtown Orangeville, we've just got to remember they are paying 2.5 times more than what a resident is. So it's important that we are also mindful of their dollars too. And we certainly don't want to deter any of them to close up business, because then we have to make up that revenue shortfall.
Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate all the comments that have been made this evening. As the chair of the BDAC, Business Economic Development Advisory Committee, I've had the opportunity of speaking with a number of the business community downtown throughout this community, and we know that COVID has certainly played havoc on many of them, and will continue to do so, not only for the remainder of this year, but for months to come, despite you know, the positive news about a vaccine coming at some point. You know, I've expressed concerns about the congestion, you know, and as Mr. Jones was very kind in providing some insight to the safety report. And again, as Deputy Mayor McIntosh has indicated, that what we have is recommendations, or at least some suggestions. And I am really concerned about that artery with the idea. As much as it would be on the south side, with the reduction of a left-hand turning lane, with the increase of transit that will be coming into the community, be that now or in the future, we are going to have a buildup of traffic that could be problematic. So I think that, you know, when we look at the situation as such that, you know, we have a variety of concerns. I'm also pleased of the information that has been shared from all sides, including the previous reports on the Edelbrock Center. So I will be making my vote known when the vote is requested.
Very good. And okay, one more time, Councillor Sherwood. Last chance.
Okay. Yeah, Your Worship. One other thing that I wanted to make it clear is every business that I've had contact with in the Broadway area, north and south, have been 100% against it. I personally visited every business at the West Elm Mall from 7-Eleven right over to Freshco. I spoke to owners and managers, and all of them wanted the hub at Edelbrock because it will increase their business. So we heard the total opposite, where every one of them said, yes, bring the transit hub here. We want 4 buses every half hour. We know people will come. They'll grab their beer. They'll go bowling. They'll have a lunch at Stack Breakfast and maybe get a haircut, get their nails done, go get their groceries and get back on transit. And then they also have these services right there at the Edelbrock Center where they are trying to increase the early years program, and mums and tots can easily get off the bus there and go and enjoy the programs and all the services and the door. So anyhow, I just wanted to let you know, I hear downtown saying no, 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 and yet I heard the people at the Westdale Mall saying, yes, bring them here. We would love to have their business, and they know it will benefit.
Councillor Peters, you had your hand up, sir.
I did, thank you. Through you to Councillor Sherwood, I just hoping you could expand on your thoughts. I find it interesting that businesses in one area of town believe that increased transit service will bring them customers, and yet where we have a higher concentration of businesses, they don't believe that the patrons of the bus will serve them. They're good at all. So what's the difference between Stacked and Euphoria, or the beer store versus any other business downtown? Why would they shop there and not downtown?
Councillor Sherwood, did you wish to respond, or no?
Well, I'm just saying that the businesses that are in that direct area feel that people will just drive on by and not because they can't park or get located there. Whereas the people over at Westdale say that if the people come off the bus, they will still get more. They feel they're going to get more business. So it's more the losing of the parking of the people, not the lack of customers, because the people that can still transfer from get on the Center Street and still transfer to go downtown to many stops within downtown to patronize those businesses.
Okay, any further comments before we vote on the motion? Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Jones. I'm not aware that the Edelbrock Center is officially an option. Has something come around that has made this available? Because at this point, there's nothing from the county saying that that would go forward. It seems odd to be voting on something that isn't even an option to us at this point in time.
Mr. Jones.
To Councillor Taylor, the county's position on the Edelbrock property was something that was decided during the previous term of council. There's a new council in place. As it's been noted several times this evening, we are in the midst of a pandemic. And it's my understanding that there was some discussion at County Council about this at its last meeting on November 12th. We also have spoken with county staff, and they indicated that if our council was interested in pursuing the Edelbrock property option, that we could take it back to them through the committee process, similar to what we did last time, recognizing that with a different council, there may be a different result.
Okay, thank you. All right, if
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, if I just may, just for the purposes of the minutes, just clarify that because the vote that is on the floor is, it is to vote to reconsider, that first has to pass before you actually then take a vote on what was the previous motion. I just want to make sure it's understood for the purposes of the minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. So the motion on the floor is to revisit the vote of April the 20th. Councillor Post, go ahead.
I just had one more question, actually. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and this is through you to Mr. Jones. Looking at the option that is being discussed right now, and I know we haven't even voted to reconsider at this point, but my understanding is that the Broadway option could have been up and running with a 4th route and a 4th bus and serving the community residents as early as January or February, if we had proceeded as planned. Now, with this proposed idea of a road running east-west behind the Edelbrock Center, what are we talking about for a timeline when it comes to servicing our residents?
Mr. Jones.
through your worship to Councillor Post, you're correct. It was our goal to have it up and running as early in the new year as we could. That, of course, isn't something that's going to happen now because we did stop work on it. The implementation of it to begin with would be fairly simple. It would be a matter of line striping. That said, the Edelbrock Center option would be quite different. There's a fair bit of construction work, design and construction work that would be required. And if council were to direct staff to move in that direction, we would move forward with hiring a consultant to complete the design work, and we would be looking to get underway as soon in once the frost out of the ground in the spring as we could. But I would suggest that we would be looking at least summer before we could start using that transfer point.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Okay, so just to be clear, as Madam Clerk has said, this particular motion from Deputy Mayor McIntosh is to reconsider the vote of April the 20th. I have seconded it, and I'll now call the vote. Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Sherwood. You're muted, Councillor.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Mayor Brown. Yes. Councillor Peters.
No.
Councillor Post. Councillor Post.
I think we lost Councillor Post. I don't see her anymore.
Okay. Councillor Taylor.
No, and I think we know what Councillor Post was doing. It's just we've had some technical difficulty. It's irrelevant anyway.
Right. So the motion to revisit and to re-vote on the April 20th resolution has passed. We will now re-vote on that resolution from April the 20th. May I have a motion to re-vote on that? Deputy Mayor McIntosh, I will second that. Councillor Post, do we have you back?
We do. I'm sorry, I lost connection there for a moment and it took a moment to rejoin. So can you fill me in on what I missed and what we're voting on, please?
We were voting on revisiting the motion of April the 20th. That was Deputy Mayor McIntosh's motion, which I had seconded. We went around the horn. At this moment, we have a 4-2 in favor of revisiting. You are the last vote, and how do you vote?
No.
So that motion passes 4-3. Now we're at the point where we are going to re-vote on the resolution of April the 20th. Councillor Peters, you wish to have...
Can you reread the motion? Can we reread the motion, please?
Yes.
That was part of my request, but also, Mr. Mayor, if you could read off the councillors in opposition for the record.
Yes, I will do that. Excuse me. Those in opposition to revisiting the vote were Councillor Peters, Councillor Taylor, and Councillor Post. Madam Clerk, do you have the motion from April 20th available?
I do. It stated that the transfer station be located on Broadway between First Street and John Street.
Okay, so that is the motion that we are going to now revisit. And again, I will call the vote.
Can we have a recorded vote, please?
Recorded vote, very good. Councillor Sherwood, since you called the that vote, it will be you will vote first. Go right ahead.
No.
And under recorded vote, we go with alphabetical order. So next up would be Councillor Andrews.
No.
Mayor Brown?
Mr. Mayor, sorry, there was a change in the procedural bylaw when we went to the electronic voting. So since Councillor Sherwood did call the vote, then it proceeds in alphabetical order after that person. So your next person would be Councillor Taylor. And then you continue on alphabetically.
My apologies. Okay, very good. So in alphabetical order, after Councillor Sherwood is Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Taylor votes yes. Councillor Andrews?
No.
Councillor Andrews votes no. Mayor Brown votes no. Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
No.
Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
The resolution is defeated. Okay, there's going to be some further discussion in the notice of motion at meeting. Deputy Mayor McIntosh has something prepared for that. Well, let's move on to 12.2. This is the electric vehicle fleet transition, and it's a recommendation that report INS 2020-005, the electric vehicle fleet transition, be received. May I have a motion to receive this report?
Yeah.
Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Post. Any further comments from councillors on this motion? Councillor Andrews.
Yes, I think we have somebody else's comments bleeding in right now.
Yeah, and that sounds like Frank Gray. Maybe you can mute those folks. Okay, Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
Great, thank you very much, Your Worship. First of all, I'm not sure who was the author or authors of this particular report, but I'd like to thank them for the detail. As members of council are aware of, I'm somewhat of a car nut and very much interested in vehicles, and I appreciate the amount of information and more importantly, the options that have been considered for the aging fleet and the idea behind moving into a couple of different styles of electric vehicles. And I think that the recommendations that have been put forth, I guess I'm fighting someone else's audio there.
Right. Mr. Bonato, can you block that? I believe he has. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor.
Thank you very much.
He's actually looking into it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bonato, and thank you again, Your Worship. The detail here is helpful for not only members of council, but I think also the general public. But I was most impressed by the fleet transition analysis report, and again, my comments and compliments to those that may have been the authors behind this particular document. I'm not sure if this would be forwarded to Mr. Jones, but if you would be so kind to provide some explanation on the fleet that you've been considering and maybe the options, and more importantly, taking a look at the dollars behind some of the advantages to considering an EV fleet.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Andrews, thank you for your kind words about the report. Our climate change coordinator, Alison Miles, was the author of it, and it does have a great deal of detail in it. We have quite a fleet at the town of Orangeville, everything from relatively small cars used by building and bylaw and transportation and development staff, right through regular-sized pickup trucks to fairly heavy-duty pickup trucks, and of course large-scale snowplows. This first step into electric vehicles is looking at the cars that are used by building, bylaw, and transportation and development. As you will recall, earlier this year, Council decided to join forces with the County of Dufferin towards trying to get a grant for charging stations that were specifically designed for municipal fleet vehicles. We don't know yet whether we're going to get that grant, but certainly if we do get that grant, we would need to have municipal fleet vehicles to make use of that. The small cars that we are talking about are scheduled to be replaced as part of the 2022 capital budget. And what we have done is we've carried an additional allowance in the capital budget forecast for the 2022 year to allow us to pay the extra costs for moving to electric vehicles with those vehicles. One of the things that Ms. Miles pointed out in the report, which is quite true, of course, is that this is a moving target. The world of electric vehicles is evolving quite rapidly. Subsidies that may be available are changing. The cost of these vehicles are changing, as well as the reliability of them. At some point in the future, we may be talking about, who knows, replacing snowplows with electric vehicles, but we probably need larger charging stations for those. This is really our first foray into that, and based on where we're at when we get to a point where we're going to tender for the electric vehicles at some point in 2022. We'll have to look at what subsidies are available and make the best decisions based on that to try and get the best purchase price for those vehicles and determine which vehicles make the most sense.
Yeah, Mr. Jones, I absolutely agree. And again, my compliments to Ms. Mills for her detailed report. It is a moving target, especially with the costs of batteries, a variety of manufacturers that are coming online with electric vehicles. I know it's somewhat cost prohibitive looking at any trucks at this point because, again, some of the manufacturers have yet to unveil some of those to the general public, but there are several options that might be ideal. And I do like the recommendation on a pilot. I think that, a phased-in approach for this would be ideal. And I would certainly support that particular initiative. You're muted, Your Worship.
The landscape of automobile manufacturing certainly is changing rapidly. The combined $2 billion investment in the conversion of Ford Oakville to electric vehicles is one of those things that's happening. And the United Kingdom has announced that they're not going to allow sale of fossil fuel driven cars starting in 2030. So there's a lot happening in the world, and I think it's incumbent upon government at every level to help this move along as much as we can. Keeping costs in mind, but the cost of these vehicles is coming down significantly, and there is going to be the electric vehicle for the common person is going to be out there in the not too distant future. So thank you, Mr. Jones. Yes, Councillor Sherwood.
Your Worship, through you to Mr. Jones, is staff seeking direction from council whether we wish to be going with just pure battery powered vehicles or hybrid, or is that something we will peg down more when we get into budget discussions?
Mr. Jones.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Sherwood, we aren't looking for any direction tonight with the decision to join with the county in the application for the charging stations for municipal vehicles. We felt it was appropriate that they be carried in the capital budget forecast. Again, I reiterate that this is for the 2022 capital budget. It's not something that we will be looking at in 2021 because those vehicles aren't ready we aren't ready to replace those vehicles yet, nor will the charging stations be in place. By the time we're deliberating the 2022 budget, we will know whether we got the grant for those charging stations, and we'll have a better idea of what's going on in terms of costs for the electric battery type electric vehicles versus the plug-in hybrid type vehicles. So I anticipate that it's going to be a topic for debate at the 2022 budget deliberations.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Councillors, any further questions on this matter? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to receive the report. All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Next item up is 12.3. This is regarding 99 Mill Street, recommendation report OPZ 2-20. As council will remember, this was a building, is a building on Mill Street. I believe the last commercial use on the ground floor was a convenience store. The owner had converted this building into 4 apartments, and that was not in compliance with the zoning bylaw. So this matter is to clean up the zoning issues and at the same time ensure that the building code was met with respect to the safety of tenants in those 4 apartments. So may I have a motion to receive this and approve the zoning bylaw amendment applications? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Any further questions? I see Mr. Ward on the screen here. Councillors, any questions on this? Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a question. I'd just like to share with the public and others who are watching, to get a permit is not a significant undertaking. And I would just discourage others who think that this might be the way to go and get council's favor because it's done as inappropriate and ill-advised. So in the future, please don't circumvent the process. I'm happy to approve this tonight, but this is not the way that we go about things.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Mr. Ward, did you wish to speak to this at all?
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing further to add beyond the contents of the staff report before you.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Yes.
Very good. That's passed unanimously. Now we're on to item 12.4. This is regarding 515 Broadway. Again, this is the Primacare property. Was a delegate spoke to earlier. The recommendation that report INS 2020-003 regarding 515 Broadway be received, and that the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application OPZ 3-18 be approved, and that a bylaw be enacted to adopt site-specific official plan amendment number 126 to redesignate subject lands from residential and open space conservation to residential and open space conservation on Schedule A, and a portion of the lands from low-density residential to high-density residential on Schedule C to permit a retirement home and residential uses. Pardon me. And that a bylaw be enacted to rezone the subject lands from Development D zone to multiple residential high-density RM2 with holding symbol and special provision 24.224 and open space conservation OS2 zone to permit a retirement home and residential uses. May I have a motion? Councillor Peters. Well, we have a motion and then we'll speak to it, sir.
Okay, I was going to propose an amendment actually, but if you'd like to carry on with the first motion, please go ahead. Okay.
We have a motion to receive and approve this. Deputy Mayor McIntosh, seconded by Councillor Sherwood. Okay, Councillor Peters, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the rest of council, it's quite a significant project, as we've seen, certainly in favor of the type of use that it is. But we've also, when facing these decisions on large zoning and official plan changes, been, taking course in terms of promoting energy and water savings. And I think this property is another candidate of that scale. For example, we did on Hanson Lands, we did on another large residential development. And so I offer an amendment to reach those same targets of 10% water and 20%, or sorry, 10% energy and 20% water with respect to the code. And we could use the same language that we've used on previous developments.
Mr. Ward, would you care to comment on that amendment request?
Certainly, thank you, Your Worship, and through you, we had given some thought as staff with respect to the inclusion of those sorts of items as part of the approval conditions for this, as was done with some more of the recent developments that have proceeded. The challenge we discovered when looking at this in comparison is it is somewhat different in that you're dealing with an institutional element, and our understanding in speaking with technical staff about this is an institutional element such as a retirement home or long-term care home, regardless of the nuances in terms of the programming that was discussed by the delegate earlier, they're quite different in terms of their water use and energy consumption in comparison to some of the residential uses. And one of the attributes of the residential developments that we were looking at was, as part of the approval process, we had the ability to impose warning clauses on purchasers and on purchase and sale arrangements for units within those developments, where home buyers are basically made aware of certain requirements or efforts we want to impose on them in terms of energy savings or water conservation. So those elements provided a very useful tool to impose some of these sorts of measures that council is looking to embark upon with some of our newer residential developments. We just didn't see there there's a lot of unknowns or uncertainties with respect to an institutional use such as this to contemplate going in that direction.
Okay, Councillor Peters, a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Mr. Ward, thank you for the commentary. I do appreciate that staff are considering sort of these motions and applications of those principles on an ongoing basis. I can say with experience that this type of facility has a very large potential to meet those savings. In fact, they'll have a much higher energy and water use because of their nature than other projects, certainly compared to single-family dwellings and multi-unit residential dwellings. So the impact of this project actually, could be even more significant than a comparable development of a more simple nature. For a long time, the province was offering funding for these types of projects to pursue green certification, which would include energy and water savings. And so I think the market has shown that it can be done. And, for those reasons, I think we should try and, keep that momentum in the marketplace. And I can appreciate the arguments, but, the design capabilities are there, and having worked on several similar facilities, I don't think it would be any more of an imposition than we're asking of other developers.
Okay, Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. Again, my agenda in eScribe is frozen. I don't know if anyone else is having the issue, but every time I click on a screen, I have to close out. So I'm going to try and go again by memory. The concept 1 and concept 2, through you to staff, will we be approving that further down the road? The reason I'm asking is concept 1, it appears that there's going to be 161 retirement units with 17 townhouses. So that equals 178. But concept 2, the butterfly model, I don't see where it's telling me how many rental units will be in the seniors building, or does the 151 indicated in concept 2 include the rental units in the seniors rental building?
Mr. Ward, can you clarify?
Through your worship to Councillor Sherwood, I'm just navigating through the report. I believe it's spoken to in a little more detail on page 174 of your agenda, which is page 2 of the staff report. I don't have the specific details. I'm not able to find them at this time. Ms. Russell is available. She might be a little more intimately familiar with the details. She authored the report. She may be able to clarify, but I believe with respect to the determination on the operational aspects, that'll be determined down the line as part of the planning approval process. Where we are at this stage is a level of certainty with respect to the basic elements, i.e. the land use considerations. So that being the access arrangements, the building footprint, development limits, things like that. Those are the elements that we've arrived upon with some certainty and are able to now move forward with some land use decisions.
Okay, Ms. Russell, are you able to comment on conceptual plan question that Councillor Sherwood posed?
Perhaps I can provide a bit more clarity through your worship. On the concept 1, it's been a bit more developed, so there is more information on that, whereas the concept 2 for the butterfly model has just kind of come up right before moving forward as another option to consider, with Primacare trying to accommodate something different here in Orangeville. So the details of that concept have not been finalized, and as Mr. Ward pointed out, that would get the details of that would be sorted out through the site plan process.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask Mr. Ward a question? So Councillor Peters has put the question of the environment back on the table here with respect to energy conservation and water conservation. Is there another opportunity further down the line on this particular project for that to be visited, or is this the time?
Through your worship, there's a subdivision application currently before us. It may or may not be pursued, however, depending on the final concept that's chosen. With that said, Councillor Peters' remarks about the water usage, he's quite right on that. Our understanding is these users are heavier consumers of water and perhaps energy, which perhaps leads to some of the challenges with that. Residential, as we've seen through council's request for these sorts of conditions, there's been some work done out there that we've become more familiar with about residential consumption patterns with respect to uses such as this. There seem to be more heavier users and perhaps less known to staff with respect to, what would be an appropriate rate of reduction to consider. We don't want to go and impose something that perhaps becomes too challenging or arduous to achieve, but at the same time, we don't want to be too nebulous with something. Again, and these were sort of comments raised earlier on about this. where it's too vague and perhaps ineffective because of its vagueness. I will say, however, that with respect to the town's efforts to, I guess, decrease water consumption, there is a remark in the staff report that discussed the circumstances around the pond on the property. It's actually being replenished from Town Well 5B. It's providing raw water to that facility. And in our efforts to move forward with this and something that's a bit of an improvement, we've asked the applicants to explore an opportunity to restore or revitalize that natural feature, and in doing so, look at options to perhaps reduce or eliminate that ongoing raw water supply to sustain that feature. You'll note that that's one of the elements discussed with respect to the conditions to the removal of the holding symbol to proceed for the development to move forward.
Very good. Yeah, I'm just thinking about this. This is an unusual type of facility, and I'm just concerned. You know, are these the folks that we want to look at? You know, pulling back on water usage and electricity. I'm not privy to how seniors are cared for in these homes, but I don't want them to be compromising the cleanliness or showers and everything else that happen in these facilities. Is that a concern? Or maybe I saw Mr. McKay come up on the feed there. Mr. McKay, could you answer that, or are you still there?
Yes, sir, I am. Yes, through you, Your Worship. My client is obviously they have not gotten into any detailed design of their building. They are obviously a long-term landholder and of the site, and obviously because of that they do have interest in energy efficiency and water efficiency. So we will be working through that through the site plan approval process with town staff, as well as the building permit process going forward. So I can't at this point commit to the reductions that the councillor has mentioned, but we will do everything to work with staff to achieve as much efficiency as we can for environmental benefit. So I would suggest that the appropriate place to discuss this matter is through the site plan approval process, which we still need to go through for this building, and then obviously the building permit as well. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Peters, follow up.
Thank you, and I'll just wrap up because I know we have other items to get to, but this is sort of, you know, the time the council will have to interact on this project. You know, site plan will go through Mr. Ward's office, and you know they do a great job taking these projects through that, so it's not a concern. But you know, based on the complexity of the project, you know, under commercial buildings, they'll likely have to put together an energy modeling analysis for the project. And so I think we can take comfort in the fact that staff don't need to be going through the nitty-gritty of that analysis. That, you know, that is a number that would be presented as part of a report that follows the OBC and the permitting requirements. And so putting a number to it is quite, it's obviously a complicated exercise, but you know, a number will be presented as part of that energy analysis. And so I don't think we have to worry about the target being nebulous in any way.
Was your recommendation 10% electrical savings and 20% water?
It was 10% energy and 20% water, the metrics we've been using so far. So for energy, that would be consumption of all fuels, natural gas and electricity.
Yeah, I don't think I would be in favor of a 20% reduction in water for a seniors facility myself, but at this point we have an amendment request from Councillor Peters. Anybody wish to second that 10% reduction in electricity and a 20% reduction in water? Councillor Taylor. Okay, so we need to vote on that amendment first and then go back to the other motion. All in favor of this motion, the amendment to reduce 10% and 20%? That's 3. I can't see you, Councillor Sherwood. I'm sorry. How are you voting now?
Have you called opposed?
I guess we've got to call this. I'm sorry. My apologies. Let's go around the table. We'll start with Councillor Andrews.
No.
Okay, Councillor Sherwood.
No.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
No.
Mayor Brown, no. Councillor Peters.
Sorry, yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
And Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
So that amendment was defeated. Councillor Peters, Councillor Post, and Councillor Taylor in opposition. So now back to the motion here to approve this. We did have a motion on the floor. I will call the vote again. Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Mayor Brown is a yes. Councillor Peters.
No.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Councillor Peters is the only one in opposition. Madam Clerk. Thank you. Pardon me. Moving along to 12.5. This is a report on 2020 third quarter operating fund variance, and it's a recommendation that report CPS 2020-018 regarding the 2020 third quarter operating fund variance be received. May I have a motion to receive this report? Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Any further questions or comments on this particular report, councillors? I will call the vote. Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Mayor Brown votes yes. Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
And Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
12.6, 2020 third quarter capital progress report. A recommendation that the report CPS 2020-020 regarding the 2020 third quarter capital progress be received. May I have a motion to receive this report? Councillor Post, seconded by Councillor Sherwood. Any further comments or questions on this matter? I will call the vote now. Councillor Andrews. Councillor
Yes.
Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Mayor Brown votes yes. Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to 12.7. This is regarding public engagement charter. A recommendation that report CPS-2020-019 be a public engagement charter be received, and that council approve the International Association of Public Participations Materials as a tool to enhance community consultation and serve as a guide to direct municipal communications on matters relevant to the public and public interest. And that should council approve the materials, that the notice policy be updated as required. May I have a motion on this? Motion to receive and approve this report. Deputy Mayor McIntosh, seconded by Councillor Sherwood. Any further comments from councillors on this matter? Yes, Councillor Andrews, go right ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. And I'm wondering if Ms. McKinney might be able to provide just a summary so that the general public may understand really what this idea is all about.
Ms. McKinney.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to the councillors. This particular framework would be generally recognized as best practices globally. It comes from an international not-for-profit organization that has worked with municipalities around the world to put together approaches that help guide when you sort of progress through the various stages of both consultation and engagement from a citizen-centered perspective. Councillor Post and I had a discussion earlier about citizen. So for the purpose of this exercise, what that means is residents or volunteers or members of the community. And in the model, it talks about, depending on the type of project that you're implementing, it might be you're informing the community, you're keeping people up to date, you're installing a sidewalk, or you're designing a new park and you're asking people what they want, so you're collaborating with them and they're part of the process as we move through the various stages, all the way to empower, where you might be having a referendum in the decision-making process. So at the beginning of the process, you look at the framework and you try to understand where the type of project that you are going to implement would align, and then appropriately engage with the public up front in a meaningful way.
In your opinion, Ms. McKinney, would this, and again, from either a logistics perspective, and maybe even the clerk might be able to provide an answer to this, but hypothetically, when I read this report, I started thinking, does this take away our ability to make some decisions?
Through your worship, I'd suggest it doesn't. Certainly council is enabled to make the decisions that it wants and within its authority, naturally. What it does do is give a framework for how you may want to engage the community based on the type of decision that you're making.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Andrews, any
no,
councillors, any further questions on this particular matter? All right, I will call the vote to, yes, go right ahead, Councillor Post.
Thank you. Just through you to Ms. McKinney, when I read the report, I kind of saw the opposite of what Councillor Andrews did. To me, this was very forward-thinking framework that will do nothing but increase the communication that we have with our community. And I see it as being a big positive moving forward. I think it gives us a framework on how we can have those important conversations with our community based on the type of decision we're making. So I think it's very forward-thinking for our community, and kudos.
No, I agree, and not to say that I was, taking away my thoughts about the opportunity for us to make decisions. I just wanted some clarity on the point there.
Very good. Councillors, any further questions of Ms. McKinney on this report? Okay, I'll call the vote on this. Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Mayor Brown votes yes. Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
And Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 12.8. This is an agreement with Artel Inc. for parking at 112 Broadway. It's a recommendation that the report CMS 2020-002 be received and that council approve the 4-year lease agreement between Artel Inc. and the town of Orangeville for the period January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2024. And the council pass a bylaw to enter into an agreement and to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement and any other documents required to complete the transaction. May I have a motion, please? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Any further questions on this matter? I will call the vote on this. Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Mayor Brown votes yes. Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
And Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you. 12.9, this is report CPS 2020-021. This is an agreement with the Orangeville Police Services Board for the town to provide archival services. The recommendation that report CPS 2020 regarding the Orangeville Police Services Board archival services agreement be received, and the council approve an agreement with the OPSB for the secure and accessible archival service of its records. May I have a motion? Councillor Post, second by Councillor Andrews. Any further comments on this matter? I will call the vote to approve this. Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Mayor Brown votes yes. Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
And Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you. 12.10, CPS 2020-013. This is a Sustainable Orangeville Committee appointment and a recommendation that report CPS 2020-013 Sustainable Orangeville Committee appointment be received, and that Valerie Nielsen be appointed to Sustainable Orangeville, and that staff bring forward a bylaw to amend the appointment to various boards and committees bylaw 021-2019. May I have a motion? Councillor Peters, seconded by Deputy Mayor McIntosh. Any further questions or comments on this matter? I will call for the vote. Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Councillor Brown votes yes, or Mayor Brown votes yes. Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
And Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you. 12.1. This is CPS 2020-017, a Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee Annual Report. Recommendation that report CPS 2020-01, Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee 2020 Annual Report be received, and the Council approves a $10,000 budget carryover from the 2020 to 2021 Accessibility Committee operating budget for the purpose of portable accessibility ramp program for Orangeville businesses. We have a motion. Councillor Post, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Any further questions or comments? I will call a vote. Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Mayor Brown votes yes. Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
And Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you. We've received correspondence 13.1. This is a letter from the Township of Amaranth. They're desirous of improving the CP rail trail. May I have a motion to receive this correspondence? Councillor Andrews, seconded by Deputy Mayor McIntosh. Any further comments on this letter? Councillor Peters.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if this needs notice. I don't think so because it's part of the correspondence to be received, but I wonder if council has the appetite to amend the motion to include an endorsement of that letter and or a letter of our own. I think getting that rail trail in shape for pedestrians and cyclists is a fantastic idea, and I'd like to support it as a council ourselves.
That's a great idea.
I would support that amendment. So we have an amendment, Councillor Peters. I'm going to second that amendment. I'll call a vote on the amendment to this. Councillor Andrews.
Absolutely, yes.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Mayor Brown votes yes. Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
And Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
So we now have to vote again to receive this. Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
With the amendment. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Mayor Brown votes yes. Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
And Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 14, we have board minutes from a number of committees. We have the September 1st, 2020 committee meeting of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. We also have the October 6th, 2020 meeting of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. We have a September 23rd, 2020 meeting of the Library Board and October 6th, 2020 meeting of Sustainable Orangeville. May I have a motion to receive all of those board minutes, excuse me. Councillor Andrews, second by Councillor Peters. Any comments or questions? Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much. And I guess this would be posed to Councillor Post, as she is a member of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. Councillor Post, the proposed idea of the virtual, or at least the Abilities Fair, has there been some thought about doing that virtually?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Andrews. We've started discussions on attempting to host something virtually, and unfortunately, there is a barrier to a virtual format. So while we are hopeful that very soon we'll again be able to meet in person, there will be further discussion in the new year about trying to find alternate ways to have the Abilities Fair. It's such an important piece to ensure that we're getting all of the local resources out to those who need them the most. One other thing to note is that we have really moved forward our flyer that we're trying to promote some of the accessibility services. So we're trying to get that out into our town buildings as well. So
Well,
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Great idea. And I wish your committee all the best in getting that together and hopefully, however it ends up being delivered to the most people that need the support.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Peters regarding the Sustainable Orangeville minutes. can you maybe educate me as to where the baby tree forest is, and was the parks staff run over our baby trees?
Through you, Mayor Brown, to Councillor Sherwood, we have several baby tree forests.
Okay.
So every year there's a program where residents can sponsor a tree on behalf of a newborn or young child. And so there are a few around town, and one of the major issues that was being discussed was the maintenance of those forests over time as they grow, replacing trees as necessary, making sure they're mulched and kept taken care of. So both that and some work at the east entrance along Highway 10 have been a priority for the committee in recent months to make sure that the hard work done by town staff and the committee in those planting events is maintained for the long term.
So your committee decides every year where the new set of baby trees are going to be?
It's generally with input from park staff. They drive the process, but it's sort of the program sort of sponsored, if you will, by Sustainable Orangeville as a forestry type project.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Andrews, you had your hand up again, sir? Go right ahead.
I do. Thank you very much. And this is also based on the minutes, and this would be a comment directed to Mr. Ward if he's available. And this is pertaining to Mr. Barnett, commented on the new construction at Metro and Shoppers Drug Mart, and expressed concern that the existing accessible parking at the location is a greater distance from the new door, and staff would investigate, and Mr. Ward had indicated that the matter would be reported back. So I'm not sure if that would be for public consumption or for the committee itself. I'm not sure if we have any update on that.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Andrews, I attended the last Accessibility Advisory Committee session and discussed the opportunity to further involve the committee in review of certain site plan applications under process with the town. The committee's, I believe, giving further consideration to that, and will be just deliberating further at a future meeting. With respect to the site plan layout for the mall property, we did look into that and clarified that the accessible spaces included on the site are actually quite well situated near the entrance to the Shoppers Plaza, as well as the entrance points and exit points into the Metro property as part of the overall site reconfiguration in that area of the site.
Thank you, Mr. Ward, for the clarification.
Councillor Sherwood, I'm sorry, Councillor Post.
Yeah, I could just add there, thank you for that, Mr. Ward. That covers it greatly. The one other piece to that is that, as Mr. Ward said, he did come to our meeting, and we've got a number of people on our accessibility committee who are interested in giving their input to different things when it comes to these developments. So as Mr. Ward indicated, in future meetings, we're going to be designating 1 or 2, possibly even 3 people who will be in consultation very closely with the planning department at different stages through the planning process to ensure that accessibility standards are being met and being talked about. So, and that way they can be highlighted earlier on in the process if there is concerns from a mobility perspective or any of those things. So stay tuned, that'll be coming in the new year.
Okay, thank you. All right, I will call the vote on receipt of these board minutes. Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Mayor Brown votes yes. Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
We're nearing the end, but I will
I'm here.
Peters, Mr. Taylor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. All right, folks, excuse me, let's reconvene. So we're on to item 15. I'm not aware of any notices of motion prior to meeting. So move on to 16. I understand there's a couple of notices of motion at meeting. Councillor Post, you have a notice of motion at meeting.
I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Over the weekend, I received communication from a local drive test examiner. This examiner shared concerns with me about drive tests that are occurring in our community for patrons that reside in areas that have just entered lockdown status according to the provincial framework effective today. So in these lockdown areas, drive test centers are actually closed because conducting these drive tests is considered not to be safe under these public health guidelines. At our drive test location, on Friday as an example, every single person that was having a drive test conducted by one particular examiner came from a postal code located in one of the now lockdown areas, with the exception of one who came from an area who has now just entered the red zone. So according to the examiner, this is not an anomaly. This is a typical day at our drive test center. It was recognized that providing cross-regional access under normal circumstances is a necessity. However, in these times, it is socially irresponsible. So I would propose a motion. I've got it written out here and I can read it. I would ask also that we can waive notice because this one is pretty time sensitive. So my motion reads, whereas the province of Ontario has placed Wellington, Dufferin, Guelph Public Health Area in the orange zone of COVID-19 response framework, and whereas all of our neighboring communities are in either the red zone or the grey lockdown zone, and whereas the province of Ontario has stated that drive test centres in lockdown areas are not permitted to conduct road tests, and whereas a significant percentage of the patrons to our local drive test centre are from lockdown areas, therefore be it resolved that Orangeville Town Council directs staff to write a letter addressed to Premier Doug Ford with copies to be sent to Solicitor General Sylvia Jones and Dufferin-Caledon MP Kyle Seaback, requesting that during these unprecedented times, while it is not safe to conduct drive tests in lockdown areas, it is therefore not safe to conduct road tests at any drive test facility for any of the patrons residing in lockdown zones, and that at this time we request that cross-regional access to these amenities be restricted until it is deemed safe for them to resume. So I would ask for support to waive notice on this motion, and also that we could vote on it tonight.
Okay.
I'll gladly second that.
Councillor Sherwood has seconded that, and councillors, do we have also an agreement to waive notice on this item?
Yes.
All in favor, hands up, please. Yes. Okay. I did want to comment, Councillor Post. I shared some correspondence with Dr. Nicola Mercer, Chief Medical Officer of Wellington, Guelph, Dufferin Public Health, and she expressed some great concern as well. I've just received another email from another drive test center employee, a person doing the testing, similarly written to the one that both you and I received earlier today. So I'm just wondering, should we expand the letter to include Dr. Mercer?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and as an amendment. Okay.
Yeah.
You're in favor of that. But it's very, very concerning. The numbers of people that go through that drive test center every week is significant. I don't have it in front of me, but it was thousands, I think, Lisa, was it not?
The conversation that I had mentioned that there was between 170 and 200 tests conducted daily at our local center, and it was estimated that approximately 90% of those tests are to non-residents of our area. And as mentioned by the driving instructor, during normal times, it's absolutely a great access to have accessibility to any of the drive test centers, but it seems a little strange that we're permitting drive tests to happen in our safe area, well, it's being deemed that it's not safe to happen in other areas, and they're closing down those facilities. So I think at this point it makes good sense for us to ask the province to put a strong restriction on that until it is deemed safe to resume those.
Yeah, I remember how excited I was when I was 60 to get my license, but I hardly think it's an essential requirement that we continue this, at least for the next couple of months, until things start to trend down. Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Thank you, Worth. I absolutely agree. I I'm just surprised, like, they do have health and safety committees and they do have the right to refuse work. I'm just surprised they don't go that route.
It sounds like that maybe happening.
It seems right now like they are refusing work. And they're also, from what I understand, they're also trying to get the support of their union, backing them as well. I believe that they're unionized, and I could be wrong about that, but that's what I understood. But as of right now, they are refusing work at this point, but it's important that we have a provincial framework that outlines this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah, as you folks will remember, the Service Ontario outlet here on Broadway was closed for a period of time during the initial stages of COVID, and I understand anecdotally that a lot of the staff members are very concerned. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they jump on this bandwagon as well. Yeah, we've been really quite good in keeping the COVID at bay in our area, and nobody's interested in having it visit us as it has in the GTA. So I'm fully supportive of Councillor Post on this issue. Okay, so I guess we just need to call a vote here to support Councillor Post. Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes.
Mayor Brown votes yes. Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Post.
Yes.
And Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, we have a Councillor Taylor.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, just Mr. Mayor. I just missed who the seconder was on that particular one. Can you just remind me? It was yourself?
I think Sherwood, Councillor Sherwood's got her hand up. Fair enough. Councillor Sherwood, that's fine. Yep. Okay, Councillor Taylor, you had you.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. I too am putting forward a notice of motion that I would like the notice period waived if I could. A little bit of history for the rest of council. I received a phone call from a local restaurateur, and I understand that Mayor Brown has spoken to the same individual. So I believe Mayor Brown and I are aligned on this. We didn't get a chance to speak, but it's a very simple request, and that is outdoor patios were extended at one point to the end of November. The ask is that we continue to do that and extend for one more month to the end of December and allow these people to continue to have their heaters on and try and make the best of the difficult situation that they find themselves in. So that's simply my motion, and the reason for the waiving of notice is simply because we're out of time. It's it's going to affect them if we don't go forward now. So I'd appreciate it if we could support them on this.
Right. I would second that, but I would like to hear from Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Taylor, when this was passed to extend the provision through the end of November, there was a caveat attached to it that allowed staff to contact those restaurateurs who maintained their patios to ask them to remove them in the event that a significant snow event was coming. I would suggest that we've had a couple of snow events that haven't been terrible yet, but once December comes, that becomes more and more likely. I have concerns about our ability to properly maintain the sidewalks on Broadway with some of those patios there. And of course, slips and falls are always a large source of claims against the town. If we are going to proceed with this, I think that there has to be some expectation that those restaurateurs do some of the shoveling for their patios and maintain some of those areas around that a little bit, because it's simply not going to be possible for us to get in there with some of our equipment. So I do have some concerns about extending this, but if it is something that we do move forward with, I suggest that it's something that everybody's going to need to pitch in on to try and assist to make sure that this can be done in a manner that is safe.
Right. Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Peters. Go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm a little surprised that this has come back because Councillor Taylor, when you originally had put through requesting November, I had specifically asked Council to consider to the end of December and was adamantly not supported. So I'm a little surprised that it's coming back now.
Well, let me speak. I'm going to eat a huge plate of crow, because when I first heard this, you know, I didn't think that November was the month to be sitting out on a patio. I was proven absolutely wrong, and my sincere apologies to have thought that. I mean, we had a glorious November with probably 10 days of patio time. So, so you know, if I you know, indicated a concern, it was only because of the snow pending. The thing that I want to ask Mr. Jones, and I did, as Councillor Taylor mentioned, I did speak to Mr. Arsenault, the owner at Bluebird, and he did suggest to me that he would clean the sidewalk out in front of his location, and I'm just wondering, is there a liability requirement? Should we get something in writing from those restaurants that wish to continue until the end of December, Mr. Jones?
Through your worship, I would suggest that we reach out to our insurer to try and determine what the best approach would be. With that said, it has been my experience that when something happens on town property, there isn't a piece of paper that's thick enough to protect us, and that we would always be named in any suit that would come around for work on town property. We have an established level of service that in areas we simply wouldn't be able to meet if these patios remain up and we get significant snow events.
Right. So, Councillor Taylor, I know you reached out to me earlier today via email. I was, two things I was concerned about. One was the cannibalization of parking spots, which had occurred at Rustic, for instance, and I think one or two other restaurants, but I believe is all of that gone, Mr. Jones? All of the parking spot cannibalization, whatever you want to call it?
I know that Rustic has indeed been removed, your worship. I'm not sure if all of them have.
Okay. I wonder if that maybe should be part of this, Councillor Taylor, that we allow it on the sidewalk, but not on the roadway, with winter maintenance issues being as they are. And maybe a second caveat, and that is that the store owner acknowledges that they need to assist us with snow removal in the event of a major event. Does that make sense to you?
It makes great sense. I'm at the point with this. I just want to help and I want to enable. And if there's sensible things like you're suggesting, your worship, then that's very appropriate. And just wanted to address Councillor Sherwood, since you've given me the floor, your worship, if that's okay. And I think for me, it was, as I recall those conversations, it was about having a sunset clause and not something that went on ongoing. And that's why council chose to keep it at a month at that time. And I think that's what I'm proposing now, is that we keep it at a month. And I suppose if we get lucky and have a mild winter, maybe we get to chat about it again at some point 30 days from now. But I don't think we should just go carte blanche and have it for the winter. Mr. Jones is correct. The amount of snow that we get here is difficult and could be an issue for us. But I'd love to try it for the short term if we could.
Okay. Mr. Brennan.
Your worship, may I ask that council consider to have the same clause in there as we did in the previous resolution, and that is that at the request of town staff, if we have a major snow event, we may have no other choice but to damage these patios and stuff. So I would hope that the owners would work with us to remove them at the request of staff for safety's sake and for snow clearing requirements. Not that we would go out, with the first couple inches of snow or whatever, but if we had a major dumping, we would need, the okay to go and ask the owners to remove it so that we can get proper snow removal done.
Okay. Councillor Peters, you had your hand up there?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, at the risk of beating this to death, I think part of the message to the restaurateurs is that you can probably also shrink your patios. You're not going to have the same patronage in this weather, and so opening up those laneways for snow equipment is the logical, progression as you start to reduce those areas.
Very good. So I guess the idea is we'll leave this to Mr. Jones to coordinate maybe and reach out to our insurer for some guidance, and then also any restaurants need to get some sort of a letter from us on how to operate, and if we need to call it at some point during December and tell them they have to remove them, we need to have the power to do that, I would expect. Is that correct, Mr. Taylor? Are you aligned with that?
I'm absolutely thrilled with that, and thank you for your support, Your Worship.
Okay. All right, so let's call a vote on this. Councillor Taylor has asked to waive notice. Can I just get a hands up if you wish to waive notice on this? Thank you, and then let's call a vote. Councillor Andrews?
Yes.
Councillor Sherwood?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh?
Yes.
Mayor Brown votes yes. Councillor Peters?
Yes.
Councillor Post?
Yes.
And Councillor Taylor?
Yes.
Okay. We have another notice of motion, I believe. Deputy Mayor McIntosh, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Worship. This is for the December 14th meeting. It's not going to be nearly as popular as the last two motions, but it is the staff report back to council in January 2021 with updated costs to locate a transfer transit point at the Edelbrock Center between Center Street and connecting with Dawson Road, and that staff include information on adding a second community garden within the town.
Okay, that's a notice of motion at meeting. There'll be more detail at December the 14th for us to consider. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor McIntosh. Is there any new business? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Peters.
Thank you. It's a notice of motion, but not to be waived. I've just been hearing and reading a lot about the changes to the Conservation Authorities Act and thinking about how it'll impact Orangeville. And there's some strong resolutions coming out of our watershed neighbors regarding it. And so I'll be putting something together for the next meeting as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Peters. Any new business, councillors, that you wish to comment on? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. And I know that our members of council who are chairs or participate in a variety of committees encourage the general public to participate when they can, and certainly review any of the committee reports or minutes. The BDAC committee is in fact having our next meeting on Tuesday, December the 1st. And the one thing that's very important, I know that we all have opportunities to discuss amongst our committee members what's going on in their specific fields, but one of the challenges that we've all been facing, as you know, is COVID. And the piece that we've invited all of our core committee members to do is to provide a rather timely report on their sectors. The sectoral report in this particular case is going to be a just-in-time overview of what is happening in each one of those sectors. And as much as we encourage the general public an opportunity to participate in these meetings, this might be an opportune time for them to, those that might be interested, to find a little bit about what's going on in each one of the sectors. So I'm encouraged by the opportunity for those representatives to tell us what's going on, because again, we're going to get some of the stories that effectively are in fact affecting them due to some of the challenges that we're facing today. So the meeting is on December the 1st, 8:30 in the morning.
Right, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. One of the things that I wanted to do is personally thank the Parks and Recreation staff for their hard work on what they have done to present a beautiful holiday light extravaganza throughout our town and Broadway. I'll tell you, I drive through Broadway and I just beam. It looks so beautiful. So again, thank you so much for putting that all together so quickly. The reason I am bringing it up is I still have people ask me if there's going to be a Santa Claus parade, and just for those viewers that maybe haven't seen it on social media or in the papers, there will not be a traditional Santa Claus parade. However, I encourage everyone to visit the orangeville.ca website and take advantage of looking at all the mapping where some homeowners and business owners can register their properties, and we can do a drive around safely. And also that Santa will be coming around on the fire truck, much like they were saying the ice cream truck, where unexpectedly you'll hear the sirens and horns and bells and whistles. So that is in lieu of the traditional Santa Claus parade. And the last thing, Your Worship, is I would like to invite everyone to attend the next indoor farmers market that is on December 5th at the Tony Rose Arena B. And you can visit orangevillefarmersmarket.ca to get a list of vendors. I strongly encourage that you support some of our local vendors, especially with the coming season.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Deputy Mayor McIntosh, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Worship. I was honored on Friday evening to attend the tree lighting ceremony in town. Unfortunately, it wasn't advertised because they actually didn't want people to attend. It is on video. I believe it is on the town website now, if anyone wishes to watch it. Sylvia Jones and everybody was there, and it was well done by the BAA, so I'd like to congratulate them. Thank you.
Great.
And it's also on the BIA's website as well, downtownorangeville.ca.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very quickly, November has a couple of awareness months attached to it, one being lung cancer and the other being radon. And proud to announce that the library now has radon detectors available for those homes that are interested in taking a preliminary reading. It's not conclusive, but it helps you better understand the issue and get educated and perhaps take a reading and learn a thing or two about your home. This complements some other initiatives the library already has, like energy meters and CBC park passes, and it's a lot more than just books these days, so it's pretty exciting.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any further new business? Councillor Taylor, I think it is important to let the community know that the Upper Grand District School Board is doing a review of police officers in our schools, and I'm concerned because some of the rhetoric that's come out of the states is anti-police, and I think here we've been very fortunate in our area to have a supportive police service, both our prior police service and the current one, and some of the rhetoric is maybe police officers in uniform shouldn't be in our schools, and I'm not in favor of that. I think it's important and incumbent upon our students and our parents to be respectful of police officers. I think it's good for them to be in our schools, and I hope that the committee that is being formed or has formed at the Upper Grand District School Board looks very hard into this. And I know the Police Service Board, I believe Member Rose is going to be working on that and bringing back a recommendation, and hopefully the Police Service Board will be sharing its thoughts directly with Upper Grand District School Board, and perhaps council maybe could consider the same perhaps at next meeting. Councillor Taylor, did you want to speak to that as well?
It's very kind of you to mention that, Your Worship. I guess I didn't think that it would be appropriate to bring it forward. I think the way you stated that makes a lot of sense. We are having a special meeting tomorrow to determine what the board's position is, and former Mayor of Orangeville, Mary Rose, will be leading that on behalf of the Police Services Board. But I guess we need to get a position decided upon as a group, and then we'll be more public with what the Orangeville Police Services Board is going to be doing under the leadership of Mary Rose. So thank you for bringing that forward, Your Worship. I appreciate that.
Great. Thank you. All right, folks, any other new business before we move along? Madam Clerk, are there any questions? We're at question period. Madam Clerk?
Yes, we're just doing a double check, Mr. Mayor. We believe the answer is no, but if you just give us a moment, please.
Okay.
It's a no, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, item 19. We have a number of bylaws, 19.1 through 19.7. May I have a motion to read these 3 times and pass them. Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Sherwood. Any further discussion on this? Call a vote on the approval of these bylaws. Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Sherwood,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McIntosh,
Yes.
Mayor Brown votes yes. Councillor Peters,
Yes.
Councillor Post,
Yes.
and Councillor Taylor.
Yes.
May I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Taylor, Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.